All right, man. So first things first, how does it feel to be here in Utica, fighting in your home state again? What's this camp been like for you?
The camps are always the same. They're a lot of hard work, 18 or 19 workouts a week. But yeah, I mean, stayed healthy through the camp, grinded through it, and here I am making weight today. So, it's like the worst day of the week, but yeah, camp went well. Feels really good to be up in Rochester. I'm sorry, up in upstate New York, near my hometown of Rochester. Utica reminds me a lot of, like a smaller Syracuse, and I spent a lot of time wrestling in this area near the, over in this region of the state. So I'm pretty familiar with it, and it feels good to be upstate, man. I know I'm going to have a great crowd on Friday night, and it just feels good to be home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you signed this bout, you didn't necessarily know that you're going to be the co-main event. How much of that is like the added cherry on top of the?
I mean, it's really cool. I mean, to be on a poster is always like a fighter's dream. A UFC poster is a really cool thing to be on. Not everyone gets that opportunity. So I feel, obviously being from this area gave me an advantage to be higher up on the card, which was nice.
Yeah, and when being a co-main event, that obviously means it's a bigger fight too. You
Sure.
have a bigger name. Vince Pichel, what do you think about him and the matchup that he presents to you?
I stay away from talking about my opponents. It's just not something that I do. I'll tell you that my game plan is going to remain the same as all my previous fights. I've prepared for a battle. If it goes to a battle, I'll do that. I'm comfortable going to deep water and dragging my opponent there with me. So.
And you obviously have your established wrestling background.
Yep.
How nice has it been to be able to pick up a lot of TKOs in the UFC?
Sure.
Show people that you're not just this one-dimensional fighter.
Yeah, I mean, I work on my boxing and my striking more than any aspect of the game because it's the most foreign to what I've previously done. I've wrestled since I was 4 years old. You do the math on that. It's a lot of years of wrestling. I don't really need to wrestle a whole lot. We touch it up here and there. I get a lot of my wrestling in when I'm sparring, obviously, but we do specific boxing and kickboxing spar days too. So that's a huge part of my training. I spend, 5 or 6 days a week now doing boxing or kickboxing. So.
And you seem like a guy that has a lot of confidence in your abilities.
Sure.
Obviously, the UFC does too. Big spot here. With the win over Pichel, do you think that this puts you into the top 15?
I'm not too concerned about that. The ranking for me isn't something that I'm hunting. If it happens, great. If not, I'm in the same spot I am. I don't get paid based on my ranking. I get paid on a contract. So to me, that's not super important. If the UFC wants to rank me, awesome. If not, then no ill feelings,
And touching on what he said, with the striking and the wrestling skills,
Sure.
a lot of people quickly might look at this and say, oh, it's a striker versus a wrestler.
Sure.
How wrong would they be to just try to immediately put that in that label?
Well, I don't think of him as just a striker either, and I don't think of myself as just a wrestler. We're both fighters, and we're both prepared. I mean, I don't watch film on my guys, but I expect him to be prepared on the ground as I am on my feet. So my coach, Keith Trimble, says to me all the time, I said, well, if I ask, and I don't ask anymore because I always get this answer, like, what does this guy do? Well, he's probably going to try to punch you. He's probably going to try to kick you. He might try to take you down. If you shoot on him, he might try to stop your takedown. If you get him to the ground, he'll probably attempt some submissions. And that's, realistically, isn't that an MMA fight? So, that's what's going to happen. If he takes me down, I'll try to get out. He'll probably try to hold me down. If I come in, he's probably going to punch me. If he comes towards me, I'm probably going to punch him or try to take him down. That's an MMA fight. So I don't think of a guy as just a striker because he's obviously, if he's not training on the ground, he wouldn't be in the UFC.
I like the high-level breakdown that you're getting from your coaches.
Right,
Thanks,
right.
Coach.
Yeah. No, Keith keeps it as simple as possible, and that's great for me because I tend to overanalyze. So I don't watch film; my coaches do, and they train me accordingly. So I don't specifically know what the guy's going to do, but my training has prepared me for probably what they're going to do, and I got an idea based on the way they're training me. So.
And I kind of got an idea of what you might say because it seems like you take these fights. Fight is a fight. You don't think too much about what a fight might mean for the future, but
Sure.
You're still coming in undefeated. So is there any point where you think about that number? Does it add any extra pressure? Oh, I want to keep that going, or is it easy to just not think about that sort of thing, or is it still at some point in the back of your mind like how high can I go and not put some sort of pressure on yourself?
Well, it's like the Iowa wrestling mentality. Wrestling is a team sport, but it's an individual sport as well. So if each individual does their job, the team will win. And that's how it is. If I win each fight, I remain undefeated. So do you understand?
Sure.
What I'm saying is I just have to win Friday night. I don't have to win the 11 previous. I already did that. I don't have to win the next 10. I just have to win Friday night. And if I just focus on the one fight, the 0 will stay. And again, that's not my goal, is to remain undefeated for, I mean, no one wants to lose, but I mean, the realistic view of the things in MMA, the higher up you go, you know, no one's undefeated. So, obviously a 0 is nice. I'm not going to, you know, say it's not, but that's not the goal. Is I want to stay undefeated. Let's make sure that I, you know, put so much pressure on myself to stay undefeated that it affects my performance. One fight at a time. Friday night, I got to win. That's it.
I love how you go back to your wrestling and the
Sure.
knowledge and how it shaped you. How much has because you obviously becoming a national champion in wrestling obviously shaped your mind. How much do you find yourself leaning back to what you learned in college, what you learned even in your high school days, to shape you as how you prepare yourself for MMA going forward?
I'm a lot more conscious of things now than I was back then. I'm a lot more conscious of how I feel, how my body feels, how what specific training is doing, why I'm being trained a certain way. In college and in high school especially, I mean into college, I didn't do things the right way. I just was super talented. I did the work, but I was very resentful of the work, and I put up a lot of resistance to doing the work. And I mean, obviously I had to at a certain point because I had to make weight. So, but I accept it and I embrace it a lot more now. I understand I'm not going to feel good all the time. I understand I'm going to have good and bad days. Where in college, if I didn't feel good, it was like I'd throw a fit. You know, I'd roll over, and the guy, the third string guy, all of a sudden, I didn't care. You know, I didn't make great lifestyle choices in college. Ended me up in a pretty bad spot post college. I rebounded from that and decided to start competing again after 2 years of kind of running my life into the ground. But wrestling, obviously, if you're involved that long, whether you're doing it, I wasn't half-assing it, obviously, but if you're, you know, I wasn't embracing that lifestyle completely the whole time, it's going to teach you something regardless. If you're in the sport that long, I think, you know, a lot of these guys that maybe don't have a wrestling background, I think a big part of this is like the weight cutting thing. We had to make weight 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes multiple days in a row, and you got to wrestle an hour later. This is kind of easy compared to that. But that was something wrestling taught me. Obviously, like the training, obviously was super, super tough in college, and you're going to class in between the training. Then you're flying across the country. You have to come back and make stuff up for classes, and then you got to go to another, you know, an 8-hour bus ride the next week, make weight 2 days in a row, come back, make those classes up. So it's a grind, and I think that's something that's carried over into my MMA life.
And having wrestling at such a high level, when you have an opponent that just sort of says, "Oh well, as long as I stop the takedowns, then I can impose my striking on
Sure.
him," they're speaking of people that probably don't have the same
Sure.
high level of wrestling. So when you hear an opponent say, "Oh, I'm just going to stop his takedowns so I can impose my will,"
Sure. I mean, a lot of people have said that. And I don't blame them for saying that. That's a logical thought process. And I guess I could say, well, as long as I can stop his striking, then I could take him down. It's the same argument. But I mean, this is the way that I look at it. And one of my other coaches, Kyle Sermonera, said this to me. It's like a bad guy and a cop. If you think about it, the bad guy's got to get lucky 100% of the time. The cop's only got to get lucky once. I only have to get one takedown. So if you stop 19 of them and I get the 20th one, I got my takedown. So then you can't impose your will anymore on your feet. So I'm very persistent, and I'll put a lot of attempts in to get what I want.
And keys to a victory. What needs to really happen to make sure you get your arm raised at the end of the night?
Watch my last 4 fights. That's the same game plan. So nothing's changed.